call this portion back in session. If I could have Councillor Bodnar and Councillor Hoyle move that council does now rise and reconvene from closed session at 6:30 p.m. with report 4.1 approval of closed session minutes, that the August 26, 2025 closed session minutes be approved. 4.3 staff reports, confidential legislative services department report 2025-191 be received, and that staff follow the direction provided in closed session. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Before we stand for the national anthem, I just wanted to provide a quick summary of the addendums for tonight. First, Denise Landry from Nethery Planning was added as a delegation. Second, report 2025-196 was added under items requiring separate discussion. And lastly, there was a memorandum added to report 2025-190 to address some amendments to the short-term rental bylaw. So at this time, if you're able, please rise for our national anthem, followed by our land acknowledgement.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on God for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on God for thee.
The Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations such as the Hattaway-Wendourok, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The city of Port Colborne stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live.
We have one proclamation this evening. October is Community Health and Wellbeing Month. If I could have Councillors Elliott and Bruno move. Now, therefore, I, Mayor William Steele, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2025 to be Community Health and Wellbeing Month in the city of Port Colborne. Questions? All in favor? That's carried. We have one delegation, Denise Landry from Nethery Planning, and she'll be online tonight. So if you want to bring Denise in. I think most people at this table are familiar with who Denise is.
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now, Denise. Thank you and welcome.
Oh, perfect.
Just state your name and address, and then just to let you know that you do have 10 minutes.
Perfect. Would there be an opportunity to share my screen for a short presentation?
Certainly.
Perfect. I wasn't sure since I don't think you can see me. Oh, yes. Join as panelists. Perfect. Thank you. My name is Denise Landry, and my business address is 8 Riding Park Place in Dundas. And I will be going over a short presentation this evening on the 484 Barrack Road zoning bylaw amendment. Very brief, just short 5 slides. So I'm going to share my screen. It does say that sharing has not permitted. Oh, now it'll let me. Thanks. Perfect. So good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Denise Landry. As everyone knows, but just in case members of the public don't know, I'm going to be speaking on behalf of my client, Stunzire, who is looking to purchase one of the properties that we are going through the process of severing. And just bear with me 2 seconds. Just a little reminder on the context for the site. I was here at the public meeting, I think that was last month, but I do note a few of the counselors, I think, were at various workshops and in sessions, so weren't able to attend. So I'll just do a little bit of a background on the context for the property. So the property is located at the corner of Barrack Road and West Side Road, and it includes the existing church that you can see in the image, the vacant land behind the church, as well as the woodlot behind the vacant land. And there are single detached dwellings adjacent to the property and located along Barrack Road, as you can see. We submitted a zoning bylaw amendment application back in May. And although it is a zoning bylaw amendment application, we are not looking to actually change the actual zone of the property. The zone of the property is institutional, and for the time being, we are looking at maintaining that. But in order to facilitate 2 severance applications to create 3 parcels, we did need to establish a lot frontage and a lot area. The zoning bylaw in the institutional zone, it indicates that the minimum lot area requirements are as existing, and the minimum lot frontage requirements are as existing. So that prohibits the ability to sever the property. So I have reviewed the staff report that's before you this evening, and we support the recommended changes proposed by staff. We did request a minimum lot area of 1.2 hectares when we originally applied for the application. Staff are recommending a minimum of 1.6 hectares, and that is really just to reflect the size, the smallest lot size that we're proposing. And it does reflect the 1.6 hectares, so we have no problem with that. The reason we had applied for the 1.2 was because we were still going through final sketches to determine exactly where the lot lines would be, and we didn't know exactly what size the lots would be at that point. Staff are also recommending that the woodlot on the southerly-most portion of the property be zoned environmental protection, and that's to ensure the long-term protection of the woodlot, and we support that as well. The intent is that the church is going to maintain the ownership of the woodlot, and their intent is to leave it as a woodlot, and that is part of the reason why they wanted to retain ownership of it. So just a little bit of history. We did go to Committee of Adjustment, 13 days ago, September 10th, we received approval for the 2 severance applications. You can see on the screen, we have parcel 1, that is the church and will remain the church. Parcel 2 is predominantly the vacant land to the rear of the church, and then parcel 3 is the woodlot that will be maintained ownership of the church. There were 2 main conditions of the consent to be satisfied by us, and those conditions have to do with providing access to Barrack Road. I had mentioned, I think previously, our client has a conditional offer to purchase 434 Barrack Road, and that's conditional on severing part 2. So the intent is that all of that, go back. The intent is that those transactions would occur at the same time, where the 434 is purchased at the same time as the 3 lots are created. There's also a condition that an easement be provided over parcel 2 in favor of parcel 1, so that the church has an access to get to the woodlot. West Side Road is Ministry of Transportation controlled, and they did not want any potential accesses off their road for parcel 3, so they were requesting that there be an easement over 2 so that the church can access parcel 3. So that's my presentation. I wanted just to kind of go over everything in summary again and to give a little bit of a refresher in terms of what we're doing and what our plans are. And I'm happy to address any questions of council.
Great, thanks, Ms. Landry. Questions from councilors? Councilor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Denise, for the excellent presentation. Following this closely along with the residents, I know that it's generally understood that the MTO does not grant access easily onto a provincial highway. But I'm wondering if your response about non-access to Highway 58 has been a result of a recent ask. If you haven't, can you? And perhaps there is an opportunity here when development comes that things change. People get very motivated. And so I'm just wondering if before you take the next step in the evolution of the development, if that's still a possibility that you would consider in pursuing, perhaps in conjunction with the city on pursuing an access there. And I think it would certainly alleviate a lot of the concerns of the residents on Berwick Road. Thank you.
Ms. Landry?
Yeah, through the mayor and to the councillor, I do understand that there is an intention from city staff to have some conversations with the Ministry of Transportation, and we absolutely support those conversations and are happy to participate in any of them. Of course, an additional access off of Highway 58 would help to facilitate the future development of the property. So we're happy to be involved in any of those conversations and help to move that along.
Great. I think that may alleviate one of my questions tonight, but I'll have to check my notes too when that item, I've lifted that item along with another councillor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions to the speaker? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through to the presenter. You did say that you had a conditional offer on 434 Berwick Road to provide access to the property. Can you just give us what the dimensions of that property are, specifically with the frontage?
Through the mayor to the councillor, if you just bear with me a second, I can take a quick measurement of the property. At least of the frontage. I think that's what you were asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Through the councillor to the mayor, it looks like it's approximately 24 meters, the frontage of that property.
Okay, so that is wide enough to accommodate a road, legal road with, I don't know what it converts into in meters, but the 66-foot road allowance to get in there. Okay.
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor, the typical right-of-way is between 18 meters and 20 meters. That being said, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to propose this to be a right-of-way, to be a subdivision. There is a possibility that we're looking at developing this property just as a big whole property. So then where Dunsire would retain the whole property and not severed up through the plan of subdivision process. So then 434 Berwick Road would be considered a driveway as opposed to a municipal right-of-way.
Okay, so I guess I'll ask this, just speaking out loud, is how does that impact the houses on either side of where this driveway is going? Whether it be a roadway or just a driveway or whatever you want to call the access, there's going to be a negative impact to the houses on both sides, where these people have never contemplated a driveway / roadway being in their neighborhood, and now we're going to run, or you propose to run, access between two properties. So I'm just concerned for the residents, what they face, and also with the residents directly across the road with headlights and things like that coming onto their property. So,
Is there a question, Councilor?
yeah, I'm just wondering if
Please.
you've taken
Thank you.
that into account.
Ms.
Yeah,
Lecter?
through the counselor through the mayor, sorry, to the counselor. Those specific details are not part of this application, but noting how important it is to the community, we are committed as part of the next process to work with the community and to have sessions with them so that we can understand sort of what their concerns are and the best ways to mitigate their concerns. So although it's not part of this application, as we're only looking to really establish lot frontage and lot area right now, there is a commitment from my client to engage with the residents in the community and to have that conversation with them so that we can have that kind of open dialogue as part of the next phase of this project.
Okay, Councilor. Mr. Atch, just if you want to come up front for me, or who wants to take this? Kelly? Oh, okay, thanks, Ms. Martel. So just to be clear here, what the councilor has asked, what the proponent's consultant has given the answer to. The property in question that sits on Barrack Road has no bearing on this tonight. That will come back to council at a later date, correct?
Through the mayor, yes. So the application before us is not requesting a change in zone in terms of permitted uses. So the intended current requested use continues to be institutional, and like Ms. Landry said, it is at this point just to establish the lot area and lot frontages. They would be required to make a new Planning Act application with a number of studies that would need to demonstrate whatever future development they have in mind is appropriate for the site. But as of right now, we're assessing it on the basis of the institutional request and not on anything further.
Correct, but what I'm saying is the property on Barrack Road, I apologize, I forget the number of it.
434, Mr. Mayor?
434 is not part of this because that is still a private lot, not been severed, because I know in the diagram that Ms. Landry showed, it actually showed the red line through that property as if it was merged. That hasn't even happened yet. So we just want to make sure that we're clear as a council that we've got to keep those two separate, because that property is not part of what we're talking about tonight. And that will be a whole separate discussion as this mayor, however they want to move it forward. So we just want to be clear on that tonight.
Yep, through the mayor to the councilors, that is correct.
Okay.
That parcel is not part of this.
Okay. Further questions? Okay, great. Thanks, Denise, appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, on to the mayor's report. And this is my EA's writing for the first three words here. The autumnal equinox was yesterday afternoon at 2:19 when the length of night and day are exactly equal, making the first day of fall in the northern hemisphere. I think we can all agree September weather has been outstanding, and we thank you, summer of 2025. It sure was great to have you. It was a fantastic summer. The end of summer marks the end of our community concert series sponsored by Asahi Kasei Battery Separator Canada. We're grateful to AK for their partnership with the city on these series. The concerts were the go-to Friday night events in the park this summer, and we're very pleased. So many people from Port Colborne and their families enjoyed the bands. We thank our loyal volunteers for their enthusiasm and support. We thank local service clubs and organizations for their contributions. We also want to thank all who attended the concerts and brought bags of groceries for the Reach Out Center. I know our last number of concerts surpassed the weight on food given from each concert before it. And we present these events because they build community, inspire civic pride, and they bring people together to support one another. Yesterday, the provincial government launched the next round of primary care funding, just over $250 million to create and expand an additional 75 plus primary care teams. These teams are expected to connect an additional 500,000 people across Ontario to a primary care clinician, whether that be a doctor, a nurse, practitioner, or team-based care. The funding announcement is part of Ontario's broader primary care action plan to connect 2 million more people to publicly funded primary care by 2029. Proposals can create or expand one of the existing team-based models, which include family health teams, community health centers, nurse practitioner-led clinics, Indigenous primary health care organizations. The deadline to submit proposals is November the 15th of 2025. We as a city do not apply. Our job is to support and advocate for the team-based model, which will best serve our citizens. It's why we created the Healthcare Committee. Primary care teams will be notified of their funding in spring of 2026. This is a multi-year process of funding with additional opportunities to apply for funding in the fall of 2026. This is not a one-time investment, but part of a sustained push. We've been waiting for this, and we are ready. We are committed to working and collaborating with our local healthcare partners in the Niagara Ontario Health Team to ensure our community's needs are captured in this round of provincial funding. And I can assure you, our advocacy efforts have had an impact, and our message has been heard. This healthcare funding offers an opportunity to reduce primary care waitlists locally, increased access to after-hours care, and ensure our residents have more convenient, team-based care closer to home. A shout out to South Niagara Chamber of Commerce, which invited South Niagara mayors to speak about their city's successes at the annual Mayor's Breakfast event this morning, hosted in Port Colborne at a great location, the Italian Hall. And it was good to hear from Pelham Mayor Marv Junkin, Wainfleet Mayor Brian Grant, Fort Erie Mayor Wayne Redicop, and Niagara Falls Mayor Jim Diodati, as well as our report to all the members that came out. There was about 200 people there this morning, and Councillor Bagu was in attendance, as well as numerous staff. We thank our communications team for setting myself up with the best PowerPoint presentation and the most popular Q&A information booth. I think that came out of your words today, Mark. Yeah, and the free socks. Members of our Public Works team set a record last week by pulling a 12-ton fire truck that equates, Councillor Elliott, to 24,000 pounds. Put it into English for you. 100 feet in 18.72 seconds. Port Colborne entered 2 teams in the 4th annual United Way fire truck pull in St. Catharines. We named each team, one the Pirates and one the Sailors. This was on the front page of the Niagara Falls Review. It shows the Port Colborne Pirates team. And they killed it. They were the strongest, fastest, most coordinated, well, all of them but the CAO, and best looking of all 24 teams entered. But in all seriousness, a huge congratulations goes and thank you to the Pirates, Ed White, Scotty Cole, Owen Tefano, Brian Ashby, Tim Rotundo, Austin Delaney, Steve Shapowski, Tommy Flanagan, Alec Jarvis, and our CAO, Brian Bowles. While the Pirates may have claimed first place, the Sailors showed incredible heart, determination, and team spirit that made us all proud because we did not finish last. A big thank you to Victoria McAloney, Annie Back, Chris Vichica, Rachel Kachuk, Sarah Earhart, Corrine Earhart, Anthony Carnavale, Megan Chamberlain, and Doug Hunt, also with myself on our Sailors team. We thank the 2 incredible teams. We were the best dressed in Pirates uniforms and Sailor uniforms, and together we raised more than $3,000 in support of the United Way, which is the main reason we're there. Our annual tree giveaway is on Saturday at the Valley Health and Wellness Center. It will be first come, first served starting at 11 a.m. And that's on September the 27th. We'll have 500 1-gallon potted saplings to give away, limit of 2 per person. Port residents may choose from a variety of native species. The city has partnered with FCMP Outdoor to offer 50-gallon rain catcher rain barrels at a cost of $45 each, limit 2 per household. We ask you purchase barrels online this week and pick them up Saturday between 9 and noon. All the information is on our city website. You'll need to prove Port Colborne residency for the tree giveaway and the rain barrel sale. 2 more weeks until our open house events at the Operations Center and our fire hall. Thanks to a fantastic new partnership with Peters Construction, the upcoming open house will welcome one and all to explore city vehicles and learn helpful lessons about fire safety. On Thursday, October 9th, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., the annual open house will take place at the Fire Hall and the Engineering and Operations Center right next door on Clally Street West. Visitors can take part in fun activities such as shooting a fire hose and creating home escape plans, to learn about fire safety, and climbing aboard city vehicles to learn how staff perform their daily jobs. The open house is one of the most popular events of the year. Hope to see everyone there. On behalf of council and the entire city, we extend congratulations to Port Colborne Paralympic swimmer Emma Grace Van Dyke. Emma is she's in Singapore right now at the 2025 World Para Swimming Championships. She is one of 600 athletes from 60 nations. Sarah's ranked 10th in the world for the backstroke, Emma. And Emma placed 6th yesterday in the 100-meter event. 6th in the world, that's pretty fantastic. Emma left Port Colborne on September 7th. She and 20 Team Canada swimmers flew 24 hours to Thailand, where they trained for a week before heading to Singapore. She'll be home this weekend. Her parents, Betty and Andy, and her grandmother, Pauline Cooper, will be thrilled to have her home to celebrate her latest adventures. Emma, who turned 23 on September 15th, is a recent recipient of the King Charles III Coronation Medal. She's been an accomplished competitive swimmer for many years. She holds records in the 50, the 100, and the 200-meter backstroke, the 200-meter butterfly, and the 400-meter individual medley. Pretty incredible. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of discipline to be on the world stage. Emma, Port Colborne sends you its congratulations and best wishes. And on a different note, our regional councillor, Vance Badaway, has been named president and CEO for the Council of the Great Lakes Region, which is a binational Canada-US group, and we congratulate Vance on that, and I'm sure everybody around this table will say that, I'm sure, at some point this evening. So Vance, congratulations on that. We see a lot of work, and I know with our work in the past on the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, we can see even more synergies with your organization and ours at that level, so thank you very much. And that ends my report. Any questions? Perfect. Now we're on to the regional council's report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the shout out. Actually, we're going to be in New York tomorrow, New York City, to announce that partnership with the Great Lakes Cities Initiative with respect to the MOU that we signed back in June, and now moving forward with a lot of good work. So I want to thank you, as well as the many mayors on both sides of the border, for stepping up to the plate. It's a great plan that we're going to be moving forward with together. Regionally, not much to update on today. Regional Council hasn't really met that much, actually at all, in the last couple of weeks, although I've had to take on double duty as I'm now the acting regional chair due to Chair Bradley's absence. And I'm sure I can speak for all members of council as well as our community to wish Chair Bradley speedy recovery and best wishes for a healthy visit or a healthy return back to the chair's office. Other than that, we do have budget deliberations going on right now. Budget 2026 is underway, both operationally and capital budgets. I do encourage each and every one of you to take a look, pay attention to it, and give any comments that you might have, in particular the capital budget. I know, Brian, you and I have talked about the capital side of it, especially as it relates to water, wastewater treatment, the plants, and things of that nature. I think it would be timely to get a bit more granular on those discussions to see where we can see some efficiencies, and therefore the capital fixed charge and the water bills, at least here in the city of Port Colborne, can start leveling off, if not going down, for our residents. But I guess the takeaway from tonight's discussion is that we should have that dialogue, and therefore see what we can bring back to both the mayor and I can bring back to the region in terms of making some recommendations during the capital budget deliberations. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions to the regional councillor? Great. Thanks, Vance. Next is our consent agenda. Councillor Bagu and Councillor Bruno lifted items 13.3A, recommendation report for proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 484 Barrack Road. That'll be considered as item 14.3. Councillor Bodner lifted item 13.3B, the report on accessibility upgrades at Roselawn. That'll be considered as item 14.4. And Councillor Bruno pulled correspondence item from Grimsby 13.4B, which will be seen as 14.5. Making sure I've got that with my Clerk, so if I could have or are there any others to be pulled that haven't been pulled? So I've got Councilors Bagg and Beauregard. The council hereby approves the listed consent items on September the 23rd, 2025 council agenda, and that the consent items be approved on the recommendations as contained therein. All in favor? That's carried. So under the three items requiring separate, well, actually four now. Five, I apologize. Five, because they added the addendum, I apologize. Our first one is our short-term rental accommodation licensing bylaw 2025-190. Danny's here. Danny, do you just want to give us a quick, because I know there was a change to the verbiage in the report, if you want to say that.
Thanks, Your Worship, and through you to Council. Yeah, we just wanted to point out initially that we did have a typo in Appendix C of the addendum package. We referenced under existing operators within the Shirkston Shores operation that a date of March 1st, 2025. That should have read March 1st, 2026.
Okay, so I'm going to put the motion on the floor, then we'll take questions to staff on this. So if I could move, have Councilors Acklin and Bodnar move the Community Safety Enforcement Department Report 2025-190 be received, and the council approve the proposed updated bylaw to license, regulate, and govern short-term rental accommodations in Port Colborne, and then the amendment under Appendix A to come into effect on November 1st, 2025. The council approved the proposed fees and penalties as outlined in amended Appendix B to support administration and enforcement of the bylaw to license, regulate, and govern short-term rental accommodations in Port Colborne. The council repeal bylaw 7323/14/25, being the bylaw to license, regulate, and govern bed and breakfast establishments, as it will be replaced by the proposed bylaw to license, regulate, and govern short-term rental accommodations. The council directs staff to bring forward accompanying changes to the city zoning bylaw to support the regulation of short-term rental accommodations before November the 1st, 2025. The council directs staff to bring forward accompanying changes to the city's administrative monetary penalty system, known as AMPS, bylaw to support and enforce of the new licensing regime before November 1st, 2025. And council directs staff to implement a comprehensive communications and education campaign to ensure all residents and short-term rental accommodation operators are informed of the new requirements for operating a short-term rental accommodation in Port Colborne. And the council directs staff to launch a comprehensive registration, licensing, and inspection program to support the new short-term rental accommodations regime by November 1st, 2025. Councillor Bodnar, I'm going to go to you first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My computer just kicked off. 1 second, sorry. Okay, I think we're here. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank staff for putting together something that we've been waiting for a long time, but also something that is well thought out, I think, and covers a lot of ground. I will take responsibility for some of those yellow highlighted items there that I was proud to put in. Staff burnt the midnight oil to get that all in there. But I wonder if I might ask staff, or I'd like to highlight a couple of them. And one is that a local contact person has to be available, and they have to be available 24 hours a day, which I think is significant, because if there are problems, that person's number, as I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that number will be posted for everybody to see when they apply for their license. So you can go online, see who is the contact person for that particular short-term rental. So did I get that right, staff?
Through Mayor Steele to you, Councillor Bodnar, yes, that is correct. And although we didn't, in the last draft of the bylaw, we didn't specifically say 24 hours, it definitely was implied. Yeah. And we understand that, that may seem like a fairly large imposition, but, we know that a lot of these complaints come in very late at night. I have met with a couple of property managers in the area that manage some of the Airbnbs, and that is definitely going to be something that they have to adjust to. But what I think is worth stating is that the requirement in the bylaw places that obligation on the licensee, the holder of the license. So They will have to work that out with their property managers.
Great, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you saying that it was implied. But I think it's important for the general public to see it in print. Like they might not dig deep enough or call you up and say, is it? So I think having it right out there is a really good thing. And another two things that's certainly very important in the rural area are septic tanks and wells. And it speaks in here to the fact that before you can get a license, your septic system needs to be inspected. And then there also is an annual report that has to be filed for the septic, and that the water tests need to be done 3 times a year on your well. So, and can I ask too, is it on your well, or even if you have a cistern doing this, is it the water supply itself in a rural area?
Through Mayor Steele to Councillor Bodnar, it would be on the potable water supply. So if it is not coming from a municipal source, then we would have that requirement for testing. And we drew the language in the bylaw from the region website, from the Simcoe Health. And I thank Councillor Bagu as well, because he pointed out that some people draw directly from the lake. So we will make sure that at intake of the license that we're asking people where they draw their potable water supply from. And if it isn't mentioned specifically in the bylaw, we always have the ability to attach a condition to that license that requirement be met.
And one more, Mr. Mayor. Also, I've talked to a few neighbors that are beside one of these, and they were impressed that we put that much detail into this and were that strict on people that have a short-term rental. And I think we can agree, we don't want to do away with short-term rentals. We just want to make sure that they're not invisible in the neighborhood, but kind of, they shouldn't disrupt the neighborhood. And we need them for tourism and that, but I think this will at least get us to a point where we cover almost everything. Can I just ask staff, so what happens if we haven't thought of something and it pops up in the first few months of the season? Can you tell us how that can be rectified?
Through Mayor Steele to you, Councillor Bodnar, yes. So again, we view the bylaw as a living document. So, as we run this out over the course of the next several months and years, year over year, we're going to have a look at the bylaw. We're going to communicate internally and talk about, some of the things where the bylaw may be failing us. But what I'd like to point out from an operational point of view, I'll go back to that ability to impose conditions. So, if we are running up against problems on a regular basis, we're well within our right to impose special conditions on the license in year. there is a process for that. You know, we have to give notice to the licensee that we plan to impose the conditions. There would be a 14-day appeal period by which they could state that they think we're being unreasonable. And then there is, you know, a committee that could hear the appeal if it goes that far. So, but we definitely, the bylaw gives us lots of latitude to sort of adjust throughout the year and deal with, you know, problem areas as they arise.
Yep, go ahead, Counselor.
So do we have the bodies on staff, or will we have to actually deal with this? It's one thing to put it in and say you're going to do something. Can we back it up?
Through Mayor Steele. Yeah, so we are actually interviewing tomorrow for the bylaw position that was approved at the July 8th meeting. It's certainly going to take an all-hands-on-deck approach as we stand this thing up. It's going to be, you know, a very large influx of applications initially. But, you know, we're working very hard internally to put a framework in place that allows us to handle that. You know, having the transitional period for the intake certainly helps us in terms of, you know, keeping those operators that are currently operating running, and then, you know, processing the applications and doing our inspections. So I feel confident that staff can handle this.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few questions. In terms, and first off, thank you, staff, for getting this put together. Under Part 4, so 4.6, it states that no person shall permit a guest to remain at a short-term rental accommodation or on any premises between 11 p.m. and 8 p.m. each day. But if I skip to Part 8, so 8.5, it says a short-term rental accommodation shall be limited to 1 guest per bedroom to a maximum of 5 guests in a hotel. In total, sorry.
Thanks, Mayor Steele, and through you to Councillor Aquilina. So the intent, it's a limitation that we're placing, that it's 1 guest per bedroom. It's not to imply that that guest can remain overnight. It's just saying that for each bedroom that is licensed in that short-term accommodation, that 1 guest is permitted, but not as a stay-over guest.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor. So if the person that's renting the short-term rental meets the capacity of that rental, they can still have guests that equate to 1 person per bedroom, but still have to leave the premise between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. Am I getting that correct?
Through the mayor. Yes, but I think maybe some more explanation on my part. The occupant load of the unit is based on 2 people per bedroom. So, for example, if they didn't meet that maximum and a guest was there, then that guest would definitely be permitted to be able to stay, because then they would be under the overall occupant load of the unit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I'm okay. So just so I can get this straight. So I'm a renter. I'm at full capacity of what I'm allowed to rent, and I invite guests, but they will not be able to stay because I'm at capacity. But if I'm a renter and I don't meet capacity and I invite guests over, then those guests, as long as I stick to the 1 per bedroom, can stay the night. And how would that be monitored?
Through the mayor. So yeah, it would be to the maximum occupant load of that license. So depending on how many bedrooms, if it was a 3-bedroom accommodation, total occupant load is 6. If you had one renter with 5 guests and you're under that 6, you're fine.
Okay, next question I had was under part 7. Hold on. So under part 7, it's site requirements. So a lot of this has to do with what the owner has to make available to the renter. So like 911, all those types of things. Based on Councillor Bodner's remarks, with the contact person being available 24 hours, if I'm a neighbor who thinks that a renter is violating something, who is the neighbor supposed to contact? Is it the contact for 24 hours, or is it bylaw? Who would?
Through Mayor Steele, the contact person is going to be, our plan is to display that on the website in the same manner that we would the license. So I don't think there'd be anything that would prevent somebody from calling that contact person. Obviously, our phones are always on, so, we would encourage people to call the town. We want to know when there are issues occurring in these things. So, I think the best answer to your question is we would encourage people to call us because we want to be able to track, what type of activity is occurring on those premises. And I apologize, I didn't completely answer your previous question when you said how will it be monitored. We're not going to be proactively going out and looking to see where people are at their occupant load. It's very much going to depend on people calling us and letting us know when there are problems.
Okay, so if residents are contacting bylaw and it's off hours of what bylaw works, what would be the next step? Like,
Through the mayor. Oh.
Yeah, through the mayor. So we do have the on-call after hours, so we will have that line there. They can do the assessment. If they can deal with it, document it, maybe they need to call the police, whatever it is, they can forward it over. And if not, there will be a mechanism that they can contact somebody in bylaw. But it's just trying to manage how many people do you put on the system at once. The important part is I think somebody needs to be able to talk to somebody or notify somebody. We're still working on our part, how that's going to work amongst our staffing groups, but that's the goal that we're going to have.
and I think it's important for residents to have that information as well. And so then my last question is in regards to sun retreats. As it stands, from what I am aware of right now, currently, sun retreats management takes care of some rentals, and then some owners rent on their own through Airbnb or whatever venue they do it through. When this is put in place, is Sun Retreats management going to be taking over all of the rentals within the resort? And if not, I think that will be a lot of work for one additional bylaw officer to handle.
Through the mayor, I think I can help a little bit. So every unit will still have to be inspected. So I think your comment is that's a lot that you might have to do all on the same day, right? If everybody comes in at the beginning of the month and does that. So there will be the one individual, but there are other bylaw officers. So some of that will be about scheduling, and some of it will be about
and I can pass this back over to our CBO and manager of bylaw to take care of this. But part of that is going to be about timing and communicating the timing, to which we do. It's very possible that not every single one in the first year gets done right on the first day, because you're going to have to schedule, the owner's going to have to be there, so that way you can go back and forth. Many municipalities have implemented it with a certain degree of grace period to get that first inspection. So I hope I gave our CBO enough time to figure out if there's anything he wants to add to that, correct, or make better.
Through the mayor. What I would say is, we do have the 3 bylaw officers and we do have 2 building inspectors as well, right? So, the work of those inspections can be shared. And then, in terms of some of the requirements built into the bylaw, you'll note in a couple of areas that we did build in some, specific exemptions for Shirks and Shores, because they do some managing on their own in terms of occupancy and parking requirements. So, we anticipate that it is, there's a slightly lower level of effort required when we're looking at the, the park model trailers and whatnot, as opposed to a single-family dwelling.
Okay, and then in terms of Sun Retreats, if I'm within Sun Retreats and my neighbor's renting to somebody and it's getting out of hand, is it still the process that they would call bylaw or the offline hours, or do they go to management at Sun Retreats for assistance?
Through the mayor, they have their own security, internal security, and a process for conducting enforcement within their own boundaries. Obviously, again, we would never, if somebody called us, we're gonna react, but they do have a very robust framework within their own operation.
And then, is there an agreement that Sun Retreats, if their security are intervening on something, are they then providing the feedback back to the city for us to know for the licensing?
Through the mayor, that's a good question, and that's certainly something that we can take away and talk about. I would, I definitely see some merit in doing that they share some of that information with us, because ultimately we are issuing individual licenses, on these individual operators. So good point, and we'll take that away for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bagu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For you, Dan, I guess when we hired you, you didn't think you were getting this heavy duty, did you? But you've done a great job, Jasmine. You've done a super job, and all the other staff. I really appreciate it. Just a couple of questions through you, Mr. Mayor. One of the problems before in the urban area, along the lakefront of the city, renters did not know that their next door neighbors own the beach on their own property. And one of the problems was when somebody went to an Airbnb on the lakefront, they could just walk wherever they want, just like walking down Nickel Beach until you get in the private area. But maybe we could give some sort of neighboring property restrictions to the whoever's in charge of it. Just if there is any neighbor restrictions, and I think that'll go a long ways in the urban lakefront.
Through the mayor, Councillor Bagu. Yeah, thanks. Great suggestion again. I mean, we can, when we're taking in the licenses, we can look at, some of the characteristics surrounding that property, and if there's noteworthy things that we feel should be pointed out to the renters, we can do that. We can build that in. Already we're asking that they be given copies of our, our town bylaws, made aware of the occupant load, fire safety plan, parking plan. So certainly if there's areas where there are unique characteristics in terms of the beachfront, we can make sure that those things are communicated to the renters.
To you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Great answer. One last thing. Councillor Aquilina mentioned about calling the police. I think it's important to remember, we went through this last council, that when you call the police, you have to ask them for a report number, because the police don't necessarily fill out report unless you ask them to and ask for the number. It's up to their discretion whether they even write anything out at all. But if you ask for a number, then it sort of forces them to do a police report on whatever happened. So this way bylaw can reference it, I guess. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Borgard.
Thank you. Through your worship, just going off of what Councillor Beggy was just saying now regarding the properties and people maybe trespassing. Do the applicants have to provide you with a site plan of including the property boundary?
Through the mayor, yes, they do.
So I think it may be realistic to include that on there if that's not already something that you're requiring. Because then at least it's there and the occupants can see it. But beyond those, I do have a couple of my own questions or somewhat practical concerns that I've thought about with particularly section 412 of the appendix. Let me find it. So no licensee shall operate a short-term rental accommodation with an open building permit. Now, I think I understand what the intention of that provision is. I guess my concern is where, let's say there's an accessory structure within a dwelling unit, and that accessory dwelling unit is being a rental accommodation, and it's on a different section of the property, let's say. Whereas, and then someone has an open building permit where they're building a garage, an attached garage. Is that going to affect their ability to have a license and to operate as a short-term rental?
Through Mayor Steele, I think what we're trying to achieve here is an opportunity to, we would be looking, we'll do a search and see if there are open building permits. Obviously, if it's an accessory structure and if that, if it provides us the opportunity to close an open permit, we're absolutely going to take advantage of that and we're going to do it. But our concern when we speak about open permits is really life safety. So, if it was a house that was built and perhaps didn't, had some missed inspections or didn't get an occupancy, we're going to use this opportunity to address those things. We're not going to take the approach that you have an open building permit, you're not eligible for a license. We're going to say, you have an open building permit, we have to resolve your open building permit before we're going to get to the point of issuing a license. I could foresee a circumstance where if it was an accessory structure, we may still, put a condition on the license and still issue the license, contingent upon closing that permit. But if it's something related to the main structure or the structure that people are going to be staying within, that's obviously going to, garner a little bit more of our attention.
Okay. I guess my concern is that just the way it reads, it's as if it gives bylaw the ability to do that, even though the intention may not be to impact, like have something like a situation like that impact the licensee. I'm just have a concern that maybe someone's bylaws interpretation, whoever is dealing with it at that time may implement it that way, because that's exactly how it sort of reads. So that's my concern there, because we're doing this now and we understand it now, but 10 years down the line, who knows, right? So that's one concern. I'm not sure, do you want to speak to that?
Through Mayor Steele. And that also highlights that we will have, operational procedures in place that very clearly outline, different aspects of the bylaw and what it is that we're trying to achieve by having that there. So it removes that, that fear of the future, whereas what if there's a new Danny in 2 years and, approaches things completely different. So we'll make sure it's entrenched in our processes so that it's clear for, people in the future that that's what we intended when we wrote the bylaw.
I really like that you are going to implement procedures like that. I think that's really important in this circumstance. So I have one other question, and it's similar. It regards to section 416. No licensee shall permit a special event at the premises which exceeds the number of renters and or guests permitted by the license or is otherwise contrary to any municipal bylaw or provincial or federal law. So I guess in this case, I'm seeing a circumstance where maybe they have a license, but they don't, whoever's the owner of the property doesn't actually rent it out every weekend, let's say. Sometimes maybe that property is personal property or whatnot. Would they be limited, like whoever the owner is, be limited in having special events for their own personal use as opposed to a renter?
Through Mayor Steele, I would say the answer to that is no. If you are using it as your own personal residence, then you would not be at that point subject to the rules within this bylaw. Does that make sense?
No, I think that makes sense. It's just another situation where maybe this is where their procedures or whatnot can kind of clarify that. Just the way it reads, it's saying you cannot exceed the number of renters or guests permitted by the license. So if you're 8, but this is actually a special event, I don't want your license to be impacted, I guess, is what I'm concerned about. But I think that makes more sense. That makes sense.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to get a clarification on one thing. I see how you've divided and read thoroughly through the units inside Shirkston, outside Shirkston. And so through you, Mr. Mayor, to our CBO. So at the end of the day, Shirkston has two types of customers. There's the ones that the park owns, and then there are the ones that people sign up to rent, and those people, I take it, are coming in as individuals to you with an application. Is that correct?
Through Mayor Steele, yes, that is correct.
So I think one of the concerns that I have about this whole thing is a lot of people have talked about that concern about after hours and enforcement and all of that. And I think what we need to remember is that this is a new task thrust upon the city, who is trying to do it within the confines of its own staff. And at the end of the day, this should be about, I guess, not so much accommodating, but regulating. And I'm fine with accommodating, and I can't remember the year or the act that came in about licensing, is you were able to charge enough with licensing commensurate with the cost of doing it. It wasn't supposed to be a profit center. Well, the cost of doing these licenses, you've estimated, you'll have more data at the end of the year. But I would argue that the cost of licensing, the cost of bylaw, to alleviate the cost of what happens at Friday night at 2 a.m, that these are outside the confines of our normal business and budgets. And so my suggestion is that all of this should be done at an overtime rate. So if your existing staff is managing building and bylaw, this is an added entity that's come up in the last few years that we've now decided to regulate. And I would like to see the costs be so that they actually do get a timely license and a timely inspection, because I fear at a March 1st deadline, I know you talk about a conditional license, but I mean, at the end of the day, to be frank, 30 to 60 days seems like a long time, and 120 days seems like a long time. And I think you potentially put people in the temptation to go ahead because they don't have their license at 60 days, so they start renting it still in 45. The deadline is March 1st at Shirkston, but the May 24th weekend, if you're not fully inspected, is too late. I come back to the point that you do have conditional licenses. But I think we shouldn't be debating here about how we're going to take care of things at 2 a.m. on a Friday. I think you have to build in an on-call system like you do with foremen. And I think we have to pay those people to be on call. And when the call comes in, there's somebody scheduled to go out and answer that call. And at the end of the year, you're going to tally all that up and see if we've charged enough. But I get the impression, sitting here, that there's this on-call foreman, who you call it, he might go out and assess the situation. We want to provide comfort to the existing resident next door. We don't want to have the on-call foreman come out and say, yeah, it's a problem, I'm not a bylaw officer, you know what, but because I have it now. And this is an opportunity to rectify that, at least in this area, that's not on the tax base. Because right now, when you call on a Sunday and there's no bylaw officer out, I had an incident the other day I'll speak to under council items. But, I asked the on-call guy, can you come out and take some pictures just to verify it really did happen, wasn't just the neighbor, and we'll deal with it Monday morning. Well, that works potentially with some things. It doesn't work with the other. And I think we're trying to figure out how we can make sure that happens in the middle of the night. And I think we know how to make it happen. And that is to put people on a rotating schedule, charge enough money in our whole operation. And it's therefore, we shouldn't be worried about how to fix this problem at 2 a.m. The people that are short-term rentals need to pay enough money that we can have on-call bylaw officers 24/7, if that needs to be, certainly within the confines of the summer season. And I'm just wondering if we're going about this not dealing from a position of strength, but by figuring out how we can, fit this square peg into a round hole within our operations. I think the answer is we can. We could fix it tonight by making sure that we're charging enough and that we have that schedule. So I don't know if you have a comment on that, and I have one other.
Through Mayor Steele, yeah, I guess a couple of comments. So first of all, I think, and Brian mentioned it earlier, that, I think we acknowledge that we need to go away and have a look at our operational hours and see what that can look like moving forward, right? But I think one of the things to point out is, this bylaw, it is, like, from an enforcement point of view, as of November 1st, it's in full force and effect. And there are penalties associated with, poor behavior. And we get the proceeds from those if we use our AMPS programs. So, I think I don't know that the best model would be to try and dig too deep in terms of the cost of having people on later in the day when we know that we have a revenue source from it enforcement. So I think that will somewhat offset when we have bad actors, that there's a recovery there for our efforts to go out and enforce the bylaw.
Thank you. I guess I'm still concerned that we're trying to offset this, and I still worry that we're going to have issues. I think you build a model that, if you have all your bylaw officers on call, right? Just like the on-call foreman. He's paid money whether he goes out or not, sitting at home. And if he goes out, I think that's added on. But putting that on-call bylaw officer on is about paying him money that needs to be extracted from the base rental fee. So I'm not so sure why that we know that we're charging enough money for you to be in this system so that we already have a on-call bylaw officer. And whatever that cost ends up being is the cost of doing business to protect the citizens. I mean, somebody's loud or crazy next, I pick up the phone, I call the police, they're there if they can get there. But there's a policeman out there, he's been assigned, he's not coming the next day. And so at the end of the day, I just think we need to do a better job of giving the council and the residents out there the comfort that there's going to be a 24/7 24/7 response, and we need to cost that and build it into the budget. The taxpayer won't be paying for it. The people using the system will, and we can do that.
So
I don't know.
let's go to an answer. Mr. CAO.
So thank you, Mayor, through yourself to council and the councilors. So I think there's two components there. And one is, what service level does one expect when there's a problem at night? And the other is to make sure that that service level is fully covered. So what has been put forward in front of council ensures that the service level that has been designed is fully covered. What you're questioning is, I think you're asking is, so what service level is it?
Yes.
And I'm going to let the CBO maybe explain this further, or maybe somebody else on our team will. If there's a call and it comes in at 1 a.m, there's this huge party, I think it's important, and if council wants to direct us to take this back and look, our bylaw officer is not doing anything, right? We're documenting and we're issuing a fine. So whether it be the bylaw officer or we have to send the crew that's already on out to document it and issue the fine, there's no difference in the two, because we can document it and then we can issue the fine. The bylaw officer is not going out at 1 a.m. when there's an infraction of multiple people, if there is, and engaging in that group unless there is other violations to which we would have accompaniment of other enforcement. So and the other thing I want to point out is, if we want 24/7 individuals to be on there, you're going to probably have to add 2 bylaw officers. And right now our budget does not have a lot of short-term rentals. So you could be looking at fee increases of over $3,000 compared to what we put in front of council right now per unit. So if they're $850 for the first, I wouldn't surprise me if you were looking at $4,000 for a license per year. For that level of service, $4,000.
For what?
Yeah.
For what?
If you want to have a bylaw officer to be able to go out 24/7 and call a bylaw officer to have them sit and pick up and answer the phone and issue the fine the following day.
So right now, from what you've told me, is I fully understand the bylaw officer's not going out there to quiet down the party. But you've said somebody's going out there, somebody's documenting it. And so if it happens at 1 o'clock in the morning and the resident calls, who's documenting it?
Through the mayor, we'll either have the crew that's on, or we'll call in somebody to help with that. But we will have somebody go out and document it. And those costs will be fully refunded because the fine will be done, and the citizens won't be paying for that because the fine will be issued and we'll recover our costs.
So what I'm saying is perhaps the word, well, the 24/7 is you do have people on during the day, so it's probably less than 24/7. But I'm really getting at those hours that we don't have somebody on. At the end of the day, from 4:30 at night till 7:30 the next morning, there's an on-call foreman that's paid X amount per week, and then he's paid if he's called out. So right now, you could call on-call foreman, the after-hours line. They'll patch you through to the foreman or the on-call. He'll answer the phone, and he'll come out to the issue. My question is simply on this. Why don't we have the same kind of system?
Through the mayor to the council, what we're trying to say is, well, why don't we utilize the system that we have? Why create 2 systems?
I'm totally for that. I don't understand it that way, though. It is if there's that 1 o'clock in the morning issue can be a non-bylaw officer. That's if that is the case, then I'm fine if they're going out there to document. But somebody's going to respond, and it may be the on-call form.
Through the mayor, it may be a staff, it may be the on-call, or it may be one of the bylaw officers, depending on how rotations work. Those costs will be borne back by the fees to which we charge, the fines, and the documentation will occur. We will have a mechanism for that. And this is our first year, and if the calls are significant and it's warrants, I think council should, I think you know us all by now, we will be back in front of you and we will be asking for additional resources as required. The plan in front of you does have additional resources. Ultimately, the way we built out the budget, and the budget will be released in a couple weeks, but there's a FPO with respect to it, because there's a lot of inspections to be able to do, as well as the additional bylaw officer to be able to do inspections and go out for this. Scheduling will be, so that way we can make sure that we have the ability for bylaw to go out. I'm sure many of them will happen in the evening, so we'll try to work on scheduling that accordingly. So I just highlight, we would recommend from staff perspective to council to try to, in the period of time where we don't have direct bylaw on, utilize the system. And if that system doesn't work, and it might not, but if we will be back in front of council, because you will know about it, and you will also let us know about it. I am sure of that, and I appreciate that. But we would recommend it's worth a shot to try to keep the most cost-effective model for everybody.
I'm fine with that. I was just trying to be proactive instead of finding out that happens. But I'll take your word for it that if a citizen complains about a short-term rental, that somebody will document that and be out, and we can handle it. I was just hopeful that, there's enough built-in fees that kind of schedule should be costed out and see if it fits the fees, but just to move forward on this. The other concern I had, I mentioned the other concern of the length of time and how we recoup that cost. So on the 30 to 60 days or on the 120 days, somehow you've done presumably cost recovery on that. And so was that done at an overtime rate?
Through the mayor, I would say the answer to that question is no, it was not done at an overtime rate. It was based on a cost recovery model.
I guess where I'm going with that, I've seen when new things are added to what arguably should be everybody's already got a job to do, and they're working their full shift to do it. And so if this new work comes in that generates a fee, that if you're already working at 100%, then the way to accomplish this in the course of a week is either part-time staff or overtime. But if it's within the confines of a full working week, my worry is that there's more than enough work there that something else has to give in the city operations. And I wouldn't like to see that happen for something where we can charge a fee for it, not on the taxpayer.
Through Mayor Steele, yeah, and I concur in terms of your overall view on this. I think what I'd invite you to think about is, short-term accommodations have existed prior to this bylaw. The timelines that you see referenced in the transition period, we're standing up a whole program that after that initial intake becomes a renewal process every year. And then, the licensing of the short-term accommodations, we've dealt with the complaints for years, presumably, and we haven't been able to capture them under one workflow. What the licensing regime allows us to do is that as we respond to the same complaints that we've been responding to for many years, now they're associated with a permission, with a license. And I would argue that that introduces a higher level of accountability for the person that is committing the offense, because now we have tools in our toolbox to whether it be through a charge, whether it be through a suspension of their license, a revocation of their license. I think it equips us with a lot more to deal with some of the workflows that we've had to deal with in the past, because we've had these just in a more efficient manner.
Thank you. Very good. And the last question, Mr. Mayor. With respect again to Sherkston non-owned units. So at the end of the day, they signed a contract with their ownership there, the residents. And I would argue that they could administer this on those folks outside of their rental. I mean, right now, I know this anecdotally through people, if you're doing something wrong on your golf cart, you get a fine. That's all contractual between them and the owner. So they are managing a system of licensing and fines that are outside the rules that the private sector could do that we can't do under our regime of what the licensing rules are in Ontario. You let somebody in, you get a fine. You don't have your fines pay up, they double. You don't do that, you don't get renewed next year. So they have a regime there, and they're responsible. Right now, the Sherkston Shores of the world get a tax bill for everybody in there on their land. And they become the tax collector, and they pay the tax bill to the city of Port Colborne. And if they're in arrears, they sort that out. So there's one taxpayer there, 1,600 units paying a tax. So why would we not entertain the idea of them, because they're policing it with some of their own staff, why would we not have them be responsible for anybody on their property that wants to rent or do a short-term rental?
Through Mayor Steele, I might have to call a friend on this one. I'm
not saying, I'm just saying could we do that? Yeah.
Chief?
Yeah.
Chief, go ahead.
If I may, through the councillor, through the mayor, sorry, councillor, might be helpful to understand there's provisions of the bylaw that have ownership of different divisions, i.e. the fire code, the fire service. And we wouldn't move that level of inspection to Sherkston, and i.e. in the building or licensing. Some of that work is through ACT, the responsibility of the corporation, not Sherkston, if that's helpful.
I get that some things have to be, like they can't do building permits and they can't do fire inspections. But perhaps there's a hybrid there, right? Where part of what's being administered out there, carve out fire because of the special skill. But, their units that they own, right, you come out and do as well.
Yeah. CAO?
Anyways, that's all I had on that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Through the mayor to the council and council. So I think when you also look at the bylaw, that has been to a certain degree achieved. Parking, number of bedrooms. Mm-hmm. So where our role at Sherkston comes, or any vacation rental type property that might exist over time in Port Colborne, really comes into that initial check to make sure that it's fully meets the safety standards to which we have established, and that's a lot where fire is also going to be involved. Sherkston already has its own rules for rental, and they have some pretty aggressive controls, right? So I would suggest that the way we've built the bylaw right now, and the way it's put forward, actually does delegate a lot of that to Shirkston, which actually goes back to the complexity with the charging of having, how do you deal with the rest of the city? Because when your earlier comments were about the rest of the city, and that's going to be a very small component potentially of short-term rentals, and versus the Shirkston. But we will see, because we've never had the application out for people to fully apply. And this will be a learning curve, and this is why, and I think council directed us to bring this and have this at the end of the season. So people can start applying now. We'll see how many applications we have. And if we have to come back and make an adjustment before we get into the next busy season, let's come back. And from staff perspective, I know our CBO and manager of bylaw take as many recommendations as council may have as we go forward, because, and we'll share the number of applications we're getting. So that way you can see well in advance. And we can try to anticipate some of these problems going into the next busy season. But bottom line is, I think the way the bylaws put, a lot of that does get delegated. They're very well involved in it, and they've been very good to have conversations with, and I think we have another conversation with them coming up next week, so we look forward to working with them on it.
Sounds great, thanks. Good, thank you, Councillor. Further questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to staff. The questions that Gary was asking. There's one thing that came up to me, and I just, real quick. So my neighbors have their renters there, and there's a real banger going on. So I call the on-call number. Bylaw gets dispatched. Bylaw writes, not a ticket, but a fine to the owner of the property. Who stops the party so I can go back to sleep?
Well, quite frankly, Councillor, I would hope you'd call the police.
Okay.
But
But do I call bylaw first to have bylaw come down, or do I call the police first and bylaw?
I would call the police first. Normally you would do that, because whether it's a rental or a non-rental, it could be, I mean, I had a whole bunch of people over my house on Saturday for my wife's 60th. What happens if it got out of hand at 3 a.m? People should be calling the police. Seriously, that's how they should. And we've talked to our staff sergeant about this, and I mean, they're there to back us up and back our bylaws up to whatever they need, but you should be calling the police. But yeah, we'll call the on-call number, and then our on-call person at the time that's already scheduled to work would go out, take notes, and then, you know, hopefully she would see the police there, that then we can follow up with our staff sergeant on what happened at that address.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
And then you gotta remember, the fine won't be levied that minute, it'll be levied to the owner of the property the next day.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to get straightened out. So people that are listening, I know there's gotta be thousands of them. But like, if you're having a party next door and you want to get to sleep, call the police.
You should be calling the police, yeah.
But then there's no record. If you don't call bylaw, then there's no record that there was a party because we didn't attend. So do you then have Niagara Regional Police let us know that they attended a party and broke the party up so that we can find the people?
We could, I mean, that's something we can take back.
Let's
allow staff to talk to Staff Sergeant again. We'll have Phil come in and we can talk to him about that. There are records of those calls. Now, whether they find somebody or arrest somebody or whatever, that's totally different. But, you know, on a Monday morning, if I call my staff sergeant in Port Colborne, he'll tell me that, yeah, we had a call at 123 Main Street at 2 a.m. and this was the reason. There may not have been any charges on the police side, but we know that something happened there. So.
Okay, so.
But let's deal with deal with the NRP with that, and we'll make sure that we can coordinate with them with.
And that was the reason for the question, because I didn't hear the answer when you were discussing bylaws going out or the on-call foreman or whoever's going out. What was the result of getting the party to quiet down?
Yeah. I mean, if our staff is there first and it's what you say is a real doozy of a party going, we would hope that they would call the police on behalf of the neighborhood, and the police would arrive. So again, let us with staff deal with the NRP with that, and we can go from there.
Okay, and I think that's what people need to understand, right?
Yeah.
Is that it's going to happen, because that's why I asked the question. I didn't hear the answer to how do you calm it down?
And up till this day, our bylaws have, since they've been in the fire department, have a great relationship with NRP. On other things that they do, this is just one of those added things that relationship will continue, so. Brian?
Just through yourself, Mayor, to council, so we actually have a meeting on this very matter to talk about first principles of who gets called first tomorrow morning. Already scheduled with the NRP, and they're very supportive of helping share the documentation for fines, et cetera. So that'll go up on the website. So Danny and our team is on it.
Thanks. That's why I directed it to staff, so everybody could get involved. Everybody could answer.
Perfect.
Thanks, that's good to know.
Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you. Just to pick up on Dave's, that's a good catch because that's important. And also to our CBO, can we put that plan in place? Because what would be a shame is that people call the on-call person for the short-term rental and we never know about it, right? And it's a finable offense because I don't think the on-call person is going to go, hey, I did something wrong, please fine me. I don't think that's going to happen. So some protocol's got to be so the neighbor knows that maybe call there and also call our person. It just have to be to make sure it's documented correctly so we can act on it. Thank you.
Okay, you got that? You're fine with that? Okay, further questions? Perfect. Before I go to the vote, staff, thank you very much. You guys, I see in room 3 here, working for hours in a day getting this right. Councillor Bodnar and Councillor Aquilina, I know you guys, because it is a major issue in your wards compared to other wards. We all have rental units in all wards in the city, but yours seem to be more, and I think the majority of complaints come from Ward 4. I know some from Ward 1. But we thank the 2 councillors for getting involved with this and really helping to mold what staff put together, and then other councillors tonight catching certain things and making sure that what we want as a council that's in there. Again, this is a living, breathing document. We'll be making changes, I'm sure. We've learned from other areas. I know CBO Rogers has worked in the northern part of Ontario with this in mind. He's seen what's worked and not worked in areas. We've asked other municipalities what's worked and not worked. We've taken some of the best bylaws out there that are already in place for short-term rentals and taken a lot of their information. So this has taken a while to do, but I think it's as right as we're going to get it today. But again, things could change as we move forward. You know, I quite frankly hope we don't have any fines because everything is working well. But whatever happens, then we'll see that happening, and then the reports will come forward through staffs and their updates to council. So again, thank you everybody for working on this. This has been fantastic. With that said, all in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, council. Next is item 4.2, the East Side Employment Land Servicing Phase 1 Construction and Funding Approval 2025-196. If I could have councillors Elliott and Hoyle move that Public Works Department Report 2025-196 be received, that the Chief Administrative Officer, Director of Public Works, and the Director of Development and Government Relations be directed to continue to work with Asahi Kase to finalize a water and wastewater purchase agreement to be brought forward to council for approval. The council authorized the mayor and clerk to execute an increase in the budgetary upset limit of the early works agreement with Peters Construction by up to $4 million. Questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Item 14.3 is recommendation report for proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 484 Barrack Road, file D14-12-24, 2025-169. If I could have Councilors Bagu and Bruno move that the Development and Government Relations Department Report 2025-169 be received. Council endorse staff's recommended changes to the zoning bylaw amendment D14-12-24 as discussed in the report. That the zoning bylaw amendment attached to this report is Appendix A, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 for the lands municipally known as 484 Barrack Road in the city of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, be approved. That no further public meeting is required for the consideration of this bylaw pursuant to sections 34, subsection 17 of the Planning Act. Councillor Bagu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. I was not at the public meeting on August 19th. I was at the AMO conference, so I missed it along with other councilors, and the mayor missed it also. And trying to catch up was kind of difficult because, especially when some of the delegates come up and they do verbal during the meeting, and I didn't know until 10 minutes before this meeting that I could go on YouTube and find and watch the meeting. So, but I went on the calendar and I thought there'd be a link if there was, it says watch, you watch it. If there's nothing there, they don't have it. So now I know. But in the meantime, I did talk to other councilors on what the two delegates did speak to. But Mr. Mayor, in the past, we have a public meeting, the verbal, people that come up to a verbal consultation with council, in the report, it has a summary of what they're asking for and what they have said written down. And there's nothing like that at all in this report, Mr. Mayor. And even in the minutes of the meeting, there's nothing at all. So if it wasn't for YouTube, everything would have been lost. There's nothing written down. So I know in the past we've done this with our planning department. So just to be aware, Mr. Mayor, it'd be so much nicer when we have verbal, that we make a note on it on paper, so when the councilors review it, we can see it. But now I know I go to YouTube. My granddaughter goes to Booba, that's all I know about YouTube. So that's all I got about that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. 14.4 is Roselawn Accessibility Ramps, Washrooms, and Foyer, 2025-188. Moved by Councillor Bodnar and Hoyle that Museum and Culture Department Report 2025-188 be received and that Council approve the Museum, Heritage, and Culture Board's Roselawn Accessibility Concrete Ramp, Washrooms, and Foyer renovations as outlined in this report, and that Council approve the funding model as outlined under the financial implications section of this report. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Another thing, long time coming, and much appreciated that it's this far. Kudos to Stephanie and the board, actually, that was jumped on this, okayed it. Early on, Councillor Aguilina and myself were invited out to get the concept of this at Roselawn, and right away it looked really good, really good. It's the right thing to do. And I think with the other modifications inside, we're going to see a great improvement in the Roselawn Center. So it was just a highlight that Steffi and her staff and the board did a great job on getting this far. And I know our people also worked on that, the design, and we found a tank in the ground, but so be it. Good thing to get rid of. So anyways, I'm all in favor of it. Just wanted to highlight that it was happening, and it'll be a great improvement to Roselawn. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to agree with Councillor Bodnar. I'm part of Friends of Roselawn, and so this has come up quite a few times since I joined the committee. And I think, Stephanie, you indicated, super disappointing that the first plan didn't come through, but it gave you and the board a time to reflect and come up with an even better plan. And I appreciate it, and I appreciate the time that yourself and Tim Anderson took to go through all the proposed changes, and I think it's going to look fantastic. So it's a great job.
Thank you, Counselor. Further questions? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Again. Last item is 14.5. It's a letter from the city or the town of Grimsby in support of the Niagara GTA corridor. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. I think it's not only a great suggestion, but I can't remember the first time the Mid-Penn corridor was talked about, and we're still talking about it. And, you know, to use some of the stuff that's popular today about nation building, well, this corridor could add a lot to that in a very different way than some of the bigger projects are being talked about. But it's all about business and people being able to get from place to place efficiently, and that saves time and more time to their families. But a better business environment, better we move stuff across Canada if we can. So I would hope everybody would support it.
Councillor Bonner, would you second that? Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I've got Councillor Bruno, Councillor Bonner.
I'd be happy to second that. I know I was mayor when we were talking about this, and I jokingly said, I hope I still have my license by the time this is built. Well, we got to get on with it because, you know, I don't want to wait another 10 years or more to do it. So I'm happy to second it and support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor.
Just to echo, thanks, Mayor, through you to Ron. Yeah, when he was mayor, my first term, when the regional councilor was mayor, we championed that. And I have the luck to drive daily on the QEW, the 401, the 403, and into Toronto. At some point in time, you're right, Ron, this has to get done. This isn't just, you know, wishful thinking, oh, you know, maybe someday. No, it's an immediate thing that has to get done. Traffic is slowing down coming into and out of Niagara. And if we don't get a quicker way to get goods to market, we're going to lose development because there is an infinite amount of warehousing space going up in the GTA and north of the GTA. And if we want to compete with those surrounding areas, we have to be able to get goods transported out of here. And it's becoming a problem, a major problem. As you saw today, there was an accident that shut down the QEW in St. Catharines and completely messed up the transportation. Going down the 406 and then coming through Thorold Tunnel and down the 406 as well. Just clogged everything up. If we had another access to Niagara, that wouldn't, not to say the accident wouldn't have happened, but transportation would have been disrupted. So we really need to get this on the books with the province and have everybody take a look at it because it's in dire need as of today and going forward. So just my thoughts.
Great, thanks, Councillor. Any further questions? Okay, sorry. Mr. Long.
Mr. Mayor, through you, I just wanted to mention to council that some of us have a meeting tomorrow morning. It's a virtual meeting with members of the Minister's Office at Transportation, just to touch base on a couple of our projects. So we'll be sure to raise council's concerns tomorrow. We would agree it's a goods movement strategy, and we think that there are some long-range transportation planning going on as we speak, but those plans have been in place for a long time, but we'll pass along your comments tomorrow morning.
Great, thanks, Kerry. Anything further? All in favor? Carry unanimously. God, you guys are good tonight. Okay, next we go to staff remarks. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one item this evening. Fall recruitment for citizen advisory boards and committees is now open. This is a great chance for residents to share their ideas and skills while helping make Port Colborne an even better place to live. We're currently recruiting for new members to fill openings on the following committees: the Economic Development Advisory Committee, which has 2 positions available, the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, which has 3 positions available, and the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, which has 1 position available. The application form can be found on the committees and boards page on the city's website. Additionally, paper copies are available upon request at City Hall. The deadline to apply is Friday, October 3rd, 2025. More information can be found on the committees and boards web page or by reaching out to myself or the Deputy Clerk, Jessica Beaupre. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Our planner, who's sitting at the other end today. Eric, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the mayor, yeah, thank you to staff, members of the public, and councillors, especially our communications team and building group that all came together last week for our accessory dwelling unit open house at the Golden Puck Room. We had a small but enthusiastic turnout of about 30 residents that were very keen on looking at proposed changes that are coming that we'll be following up with at council at our next meeting in October. So that is coming up. We're excited to bring that forward. And then in addition, we have started with our work plan. We had an item on the agenda tonight about the official plan. There's some dates and a schedule that's in there for consultation and engagement. We're looking forward to talking with residents and talking with council about their vision for Port Colborne and growth in Port Colborne. And other than that, we've got a run on applications this week. Things have come in. I don't know if it's the end of the year or if it's the fact that the summer's over, but we've got a lot on the go now, and we'll be coming back with I think we've got reports on just about we'll be seeing you every Tuesday through the end of the year. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing from fire.
Thank you. Mr. Szapowski.
Yes, so we've officially kicked off our first sanitary lateral lining program. And we actually had the first 2 liners installed today, and they were successful. So it's really good for Port Colborne, the first time we've had it, and it's not very typical. So it worked out well. And the work is generally taking place in the Omer area because that's where we do see issues with influent infiltration. All the impacted properties are being directly notified, so we are working on a case-by-case basis, so it's not publicly, although we're advertising it on social media. We are contacting people directly that are being impacted by the project, and we'll be sure to keep council up to date on the project's progress and also the outcomes of it at the end. The roadway lighting repairs along West Street from Clarence Street to Charlotte Street are nearing completion, with the final connection and inspection being the only things that are outstanding right now. Staff are pushing to have this complete as soon as possible, but there is a chance the repairs will push into next week just because of the timing for the final inspection to take place before they can energize it again. Construction on Welland Street is progressing well. The majority of the storm sewer changes have taken place. Next week, the contractor will start the excavation on the multi-use trail, as well as the new fence going in. Rural residents may have noticed some work taking place at the road ends by the lake this week. This is part of the new or replacement gates that are being installed from the outcome of the road end reports and consultation that we did earlier this year. The current key system will remain in place until the current key holders are notified through mail of the changes in process, which will take place over the winter. Construction in the area is planned to be until the end of October. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Mr. Long.
I didn't have anything else, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
CBO. Plus the other planner has something to add too. No? CBO.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a huge thank you to Jasmine and her team, Charlotte and her team, Sarah Premi for the early morning and late night phone calls as we kind of worked our way through finalizing the bylaw. Certainly Eric and Kelly stepped up with all kinds of advice from a zoning perspective. And then a thank you to the building team and the bylaw team. While I sort of went AWOL to the last couple of weeks to work on this, they kept the business going, and so just really appreciative.
Thank you. Comms.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. CAO.
Thank you. Just a couple things. One, Social Determinants of Health Committee meeting, so 2 weeks ago, we reviewed something from TOES Niagara. It's a code of conduct for human trafficking. So we're going to take a look at that. Our Human Resource Department will be contacting the other municipalities, and there may be some recommendations that will come back to this council to talk about how we can educate our staff about and the awareness with respect to this. Just to echo what the mayor said, the new healthcare grant funding came out. That will be very significant over the next 2 months to work with the medical community. Just a reminder, it will be the medical community that puts in the grant, and it'll be the city that'll be advocating to remind the medical community as that moves forward that if our UCC is going to close, we need a plan with any grant application to be able to deal with that, take over those services. And last, I can't announce the grant, but just for council to know, we just got an email today that a new grant was received, but we have to wait for the appropriate process, and hopefully at the next council or the council thereafter, we can give you some good news. So just a precursor that there's some more good news coming, and great job to the team to have gotten this.
Great, thank you. Councilors' remarks. Councilor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just really one, staff took care of everything else. The stoplights at Welland, and that's still Clarence that goes across the bridge, right? Right? The stoplights there. So, I don't know, I'm getting stopped there by the lights a lot more than I ever did before. I always thought it was when you were stopped, you seen another car there. And I thought it was triggered by cars coming up and triggering that light. But now it's on when nobody's there. Am I wrong, or can you check that out? It just seems like there's no reason for that light to come on. And anyways, I just always thought it was triggered when a car came from Welland to Clarence. So if you could check that out, just let us know.
Steve?
Thank you.
Yeah, through your worship, I'll get a hold of the region and we can check the timing on it just to verify everything's working okay with it, and then we'll follow up.
Councilor Hoyle.
To the mayor, on Sunday I had the honor of attending the 85th anniversary ceremony for the Battle of Britain on behalf of the city at the Chippewa Cenotaph in Welland. Laid a wreath and what else I do? It was hosted by the 434 Wing Niagara Air Force Association. There was a flyover, if anyone else saw it in the area. A special shout out to the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, whose members raised funds to donate 2 school backpack supplies, bags, to all of our elementary schools. So that's 8 schools, so 16 bags. It really shows great work that group does. Also, the clerk mentioned that the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee has room for 3 more members. So please, if you're a youth and you're interested, come on out, sign up. Lastly, Steve, the lights on West Street and the updates, because they're more off than on.
Yeah, through your worship. So that's that is the one that I was mentioning on West Street, that the work is fully complete, except for the final connection and then the final permit that's going to need to take place through CNP. So we're just working on that schedule. It may go into next week. We're aiming for this week. I just don't know if we can get that final inspection in time. So we're probably going to be into next week on it.
Yeah, because it would be from Clarence to, well, in front of the restaurants and all that, it stays dark, and then all of a sudden it lights up as you farther you go down. So I would walk my dog, and that's what I noticed. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Yeah, just a couple of things. To Steve and the Roads Group that put the bridge out sign at the corner of Rosemount and Clarence. I'm sure that there was a lot of people that went down Rosemount onto Lakeshore and couldn't get across. So now there's more of a warning so that you can go straight through. That was really good. And I apologize to building and planning for the issues that I brought up before the meeting. I hope it doesn't cause you too much problems to take a look at that, a little more paperwork. And talking about stoplights, I don't know if you ever get a chance. Main Street Bridge, when it goes up, the lights all change red at points in time and no traffic moves. Then the bridge goes down and the lights are all red again and no traffic moves. It doesn't seem like they're coordinated for any position that the bridge is in. And nobody seems to know what to do. So if we can have a conversation with the Seaway, I'm assuming it's the Seaway that operates those ones?
Through you, your worship. So it's actually the chief and I have met with the Seaway and the region together to talk about the issues around there. Actually, our mayor and CAO have also been in those conversations earlier as well. So what we're doing right now is the region's conducting a review right now to determine what the timing is. They're also going to look at the possibility of syncing the systems that are on the west side of the canal versus the east side of the canal so that you can actually get things flowing a little easier. Yeah. Happens on the middle bridge as well too, off of Mellenby, where the intersection at Mellenby backs up quite frequently, but it's because the traffic on Welland isn't moving out fast enough. So if we're able to sync those up, we're assuming that's going to help quite significantly. So that's where we're kind of going right now. Our next meeting is within 2 weeks, just in October there. So we'll have a little more information at that time.
Good. Thank you. Councilor Bruno?
Speaking of that same situation there, but on a different light, through you to Steve. Steve, I know there's a lot of people that use it. I believe it's Barber Drive that goes all the way down to the Stone Dock, second concession.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're, a lot of people who are using that instead of 140 to Main Street, taking traffic off there, they come that way. When you get to the Jackknife Bridge at Main, is there any way that, right now, there's a left-hand turn lane and there's a right-hand turn onto the Jackknife Bridge? Is there a way, the traffic is low at virtually any time of the day or night. But if you're trying to make a right onto Main, waiting at the red light, you're behind, and rightfully Main Street has the longest green as it should, allow the most traffic. Is there any way that the center lane could be a left and center so that anybody approaching that intersection wanting to make a right-hand turn onto the bridge can actually get on it? Because you sit there behind somebody waiting for the red light and they could easily be in the middle lane, joining the left-hand turn lane. So if you could look into that.
Yeah, through your worship, it's a very interesting point that you raised, because I've been in that situation numerous times too. What we'll do is when we meet with the region again in October, we'll mention that to them and see what they say. They do have traffic counts that are already done, but they were just looking to see if they need to be refreshed based on the timeline. So we might be able to tell if we can do something similar to that scenario based on the traffic count of how many people are actually turning left versus going straight versus turning right, and see if they're put into one lane versus another, how that'll impact the traffic movements there. So we'll definitely bring that up.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. And one last one through you to, I guess it would be Danny in this case. I had a resident call me on Sunday, and they were in behind the north end of Hawthorne Heights in the field known as Meadow Heights and Rosedale subdivision. There was an excavator working and a hoe ram. And so I knew by law wouldn't be on Sunday afternoon, or assumed that. And so I called the on-call. And just, even though the resident had taken a picture of it and sent it to me, just thought it would be a good idea to have a city employee verify that. I believe construction like that's not allowed on a Sunday. Because I remember when they were building Oriole, that was the rule then. But is there a way that the construction company could be spoken to there? And I'm not sure which of the companies it is, but this took place right in behind what is their field office construction trailer there. You could see the movement above the horizon of the, but I guess I'm concerned that, you know, if it happens this Sunday, I'm back into the same boat. So to be proactive, could someone from bylaw talk to them and explain the fine? And if there is one, perhaps you could, if you know it, I'd like to be able to convey that back to the resident and to call right away. And perhaps they don't have to try and catch me being home or answering the phone. They could just call right into the on-call. But any suggestions as to that or the fine?
Through Mayor Steele, yeah, I can absolutely look into that with staff. I don't know what the fine would be off the top of my head, but certainly we'll get you that number and we'll get to the bottom of it.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bagu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple items. Last Friday I was at Roselawn. They had the art auction for the Friends of Roselawn, and I was amazed at the amount of quality, how great our painters are, local painters. And there's an auction going on right now till October 3rd. But Director Stephanie told me tonight 2 paintings have already been bought out. I guess you can either bid on them or you can buy it out at a certain fee. So 2 paintings are already gone. So if the residents or anybody else at council wants to go there, October 3rd is the last day of the auction, Mr. Mayor. And any profits goes to the Friends of Roselawn, which we've heard do a great job over there. And that tank that was in the ground, I've heard, was not leaking. It was a perfect tank, and so there's no remediation of the soil whatsoever, Mr. Mayor. So great to hear that. Probably from your relatives.
It was probably put in by my great-grandfather.
Yeah, probably, no doubt. The other one, Mr. Mayor, I was going through the city's website, the bylaws, and the bylaws governed by other departments, and the one is by Public Works, and it's the water fines. I was just curious to find out some of the water fines in our municipality. When I got on this page here, bylaw 3151/22/95, I guess that's 1995, Mr. Mayor. And most of the fines are less than my water bill is for a month. They're only $100 fines, and I'm hoping this fine chart is way outdated. And if we can look on that, because it is on our website, Mr. Mayor. And I was disappointed to see it there because, like I said, like it's less than my monthly water bill. I think we have increased our fines, but just not updated on the website, Mr. Mayor. So hopefully after the short-term rental is all over, you had your 2-week holiday, and you came back to work, get on it right away. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Borgard. Councillor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question is for Director Szpolski. I received a phone call today from somebody on Second Concession who is, I guess, behind the quarry. And I understand that it's been a drier season than normal, but this resident has indicated that there has been an increase this year in the amount of dust that's been coming. So I don't know if it's coming from the quarry or if it's coming from the east side development that's happening, or AKA, like I know there's lots of dirt being moved around in that area. But I was just wondering if you could look into that for me, and I can give you the contact information tomorrow.
Through your worship, we can definitely look into that, and we'll contact PC Quarries just to see if there's been a change in their process, or if there's more frequent cleanings that are needed. So they've been very good working with us on that stand. So we'll definitely touch base with them and see if that is the issue, if something can be done to remediate it.
Thank you. And I have one more. I'm not sure if this should go to the regional counselor or Councillor Bogart on the transportation committee. But I received an inquiry about the on-demand service, specifically about the accessible van that's being used. And the inquiry is in regards to apparently the vehicles do not enter a driveway. So they park on the road, and then the person with the accessibility issues has to somehow get from their home or long-term care or whatever facility they're in to get to the vehicle on the road. And I'm just inquiring if that's a permanent thing or something that can be amended.
Councillor.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Aquilina. We actually dealt with this similar circumstance. Councillor Bodner brought it to my attention off of Empire Road. And when I took it to the Niagara Transit Commission, it turns out that the provider, Voyago, has a policy in which they do not go into driveways for whatever reason, we don't know. But it's a policy that they implement. Niagara Transit staff have been trying to get them to change the policy and are working to change this because we do see it as a concern across the region. So we're aware of it, they're working on it, but unfortunately what it comes down to is it's policy and it has to do with Voyago, not the Niagara Transit Commission.
So will you be bringing that back to the commission, or?
I can raise it again, but I imagine it'll be the same answer.
Yeah, and Councillor Aquilina, CAO Bowles and I did meet with Chair Cisco and their general manager, and I don't know what the other guy's title was.
I think it was the
operations manager, yes. And we actually brought that up to that, and there is, as the councillor said, they've talked about this at their meetings. It is something that the contractor has in theirs. They are trying to get it changed, and it's funny because we brought this up to their vice president at FCM when we were there this year. We brought up the exact address that Councillor Bodner and Councillor Beauregard worked on. They did do another look at that because they'd had a complaint. They wouldn't change their mind on it, and what we got at FCM was, well, if the driveway's too small, we don't want our guy backing out and getting hit in traffic. And I mean, the one driveway that we talked about is huge. You could turn around in it. So, and they talked about it being a case-by-case basis. So that's where we're kind of getting things lost in translation, where they're telling us it's case-by-case, yet they're telling our committee, transit board, that it's their rule and that's end stop. That's it. So I know they are working on it, both Chair, Mayor Cisco. They're trying to get it rectified. It's not just in Port Colborne, it's across the region.
So just
they are working on it, yes.
And thank you for that. Just to add to that, this particular inquiry, they viewed it in St. Catharines, and the van stopped on the roadway, blocking the bike lane and traffic going through. So it seems like it's more of a hazard where they're parking to get, the occupant or the person not taking it, and then the accessibility features, it makes no sense to me why we would do it that way. So I appreciate the update. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Are there any notices of motion? Okay. We have bylaws. If I could have Councillors Beauregard and Aquilina move that the following bylaws be passed and enacted as presented. Bylaw number 7378/78/25. Bylaw number 7388/79/25 as amended. And bylaw number 7380/80/25. Questions on the bylaws? All in favor? Carried. Sure.
Thank you, Mayor. I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to staff for getting the crosswalk done on Clarence Street, the Veterans Crosswalk. Judging by social media posts, hundreds, if not thousands of people want to say thank you for getting that done in a more rapid fashion than I think anybody thought possible. I know that I got a couple of text messages from Legion members that wanted to say thank you and said thanks to me, and it's like, don't say thanks to me. Thank our staff, because that was in rapid fashion, and I'm sure that everybody that has seen it approves of it. The comments were super supportive. So it's, when we put our minds to it and we've got something that really needs to get done, it's nice to see that it got done as quickly as it did. So kudos to staff that was in on that, and it's really, really nice to see. So I'm going to say on behalf of the Legion, thanks to all that had a hand in that. Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor. So, great job tonight, staff, council, and thank those for watching at home. At this time, we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.